The alien queen sat on her great throne, her eyes sharp and full of worry. Outside the tall windows of her palace, the sky was dark with smoke from battle. The war had lasted many years. Her armies were tired. Her ships were damaged. The enemy was closing in. She looked at the large table in front of her. Around it sat her generals and leaders. Some were tall with sharp claws, others had many eyes or strange shapes. All looked serious and afraid. The alien queen had called this meeting because they needed a new plan. Their old ways were not working. "Tell me," she said. "How much longer can we fight like this? Our soldiers are tired, our ships are broken. Soon we will have nothing left." Her voice was strong but heavy with worry. One general, with metal armor and a deep voice, spoke first. "We can keep fighting, my queen. We can build new ships. We can train new soldiers. But it will take time we may not have." Another, smaller and quick, said, "The enemy is smarter now. They watch us. They learn. Every battle we win costs us more than it costs them." The alien queen clenched her fists. She hated losing. She hated feeling weak. But she could not lie to herself. They were losing. Slowly, but surely. The war had started many years ago. Her empire wanted to take control of new planets. The other, alien groups did not want to lose their homes. So they fought back. At first, the queen's army was strong and fast. They won many battles. But the enemy grew stronger too. They made new weapons. They learned the queen's tactics. The war had turned into a long, painful fight. Now the queen felt the walls closing in. Her empire was breaking. Her people were scared. She needed hope. She needed a new way. At the back of the room, near the doors, a figure sat quietly. A human. Humans were rare in the Queen's empire. Most aliens did not trust them. They thought humans were strange and weak. This human was small, with plain clothes and tired eyes. He worked as an engineer on one of the Queen's ships. No one expected him to speak in a meeting like this, but the human watched everything carefully. He saw the fear on the Queen's face. He heard the doubts in the generals' voices. He knew he had an idea that could help. The alien queen looked around the room again. She saw the tired faces, the worried eyes. She wanted to say something strong and clear, but what could she say? The room grew silent. Everyone waited for the next step. The war was not over, but the end was near. And no one knew that soon. The quiet human from the crowd would change everything. The room was heavy with tension. The alien queen sat quietly, thinking deeply. Around her, the generals and leaders whispered among themselves. Each was lost in worry. How could they win when their strength was fading? The human engineer stayed, still, sitting in a corner near the back. He did not say a word. No one paid much attention to him. To most, he was just a small, quiet figure in the crowd. Humans were different from the other species. They did not have sharp claws or powerful wings. They were not fast or very strong. But humans had something else. They had strange minds that worked in ways aliens did not always understand. The human watched the queen and the generals. He listened to their plans and complaints. Slowly, an idea began to grow inside his mind. It was simple, but new. It could change everything. Suddenly, the room fell silent. The alien queen looked up. All eyes turned to the human. He was standing now, looking calm but sure. No one expected this. The queen's guard moved slightly, ready to stop him if needed. But the queen said nothing. She waited. The human took a deep breath and spoke clearly. "Your Majesty, generals, I have been listening. I see your pain and your fear. I want to share an idea, one that does not need more ships or more soldiers." A murmur ran through the room. Some generals looked angry. How could a low-ranking human speak in their war council? But others were curious. The human continued, "We keep fighting the same way, trying to crush our enemies with force. But this war is different. Our enemies are many and united. If we only fight fire with fire, we will lose." The alien queen raised an eyebrow. And what do you suggest, human? The man smiled slightly. I suggest we change how we fight. Instead of attacking all at once, we find the cracks inside the enemy. We find those who do not want this war. We talk to them. We make friends inside the enemy's walls. A general laughed loudly. Make friends? With our enemies? That is weakness. The human shook his head. No, it is strength. It is smart. If we can turn some enemies into friends, we can weaken their armies from inside. We can win without endless bloodshed. The room was quiet again. The queen looked at the human closely. She could see something in his eyes, hope, courage, and a new way of thinking. Tell me more, she said softly. The human explained how humans often solved their problems by talking, by understanding different ideas. He spoke about alliances and trust, and how sometimes the strongest weapon was a kind word. Some generals still doubted, but the queen was thinking. She saw the war had to end soon, and maybe this idea was the key. Very well, she said. We will try your way, but if it fails, we return to the old ways. The human nodded, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. This was his chance to help, to change the fate of the Queen's empire and the entire war. As the meeting ended, the Queen looked once more at the quiet human who dared to speak. She knew this war was about to change because of him. The War Council room was still buzzing with surprise. No one expected the quiet human to speak up, let alone with such confidence. The alien Queen's generals exchanged uneasy looks. Could a low-ranking engineer really have a plan to save the Empire? The human stood near the back, calm and steady. His hands were relaxed, but inside his heart beat fast. He knew this moment was important. If he failed, the war would continue, and many would die. But if he succeeded, maybe the Queen's empire could live. The alien Queen leaned forward, her eyes sharp. You have my attention, she said. Explain your idea fully. We must understand if it is more than just words. The human nodded and took a breath. Your Majesty, this war is not like others. The enemy is a group of different alien species. They do not always trust each other. Some want peace but are forced to fight. If we can find those who want peace, we can convince them to join us or stop fighting. A tall, armored general interrupted. How do you propose we do this? Our spies say the enemy is strong and united. The human smiled slightly. They may look united, but every group has problems. Some leaders disagree. Some soldiers are tired. We can use diplomacy and understanding. Instead of just weapons, the Queen's eyes shone with hope. Can you lead this effort? Can you find these groups and talk to them? The human looked at the room. I can try. I have studied some enemy languages and cultures. I know how to speak to them. I need a small team and your trust. The generals murmured. Trust was hard to give. The War Council was a place of power, not kindness, but the Queen saw something different in the human's eyes. A clear mind and a steady heart. Very well, the Queen said. You will lead a small group. Go quietly and find these allies. Bring us news and, if possible, new friends. The human bowed his head respectfully. Thank you, Your Majesty. I will not fail. That night, the human prepared carefully. He gathered a small team of diplomats and scouts. None were soldiers. They carried no heavy weapons. Their strength was their words and knowledge. The human studied maps and enemy signals. He learned where the enemy's weakest points might be. He chose targets carefully, groups that might listen, groups tired of war. As the team moved quietly into enemy territory, the human thought about the risks. If caught, they would be prisoners or worse. But he believed this was the only way to save lives and end the war. Along the way, they met small groups of enemy soldiers who were tired and scared. The human spoke slowly and kindly. He told them about the Queen's new plan, about hope for peace, and about ending the fighting. At first, many did not trust him. War made enemies bitter, but the human kept listening. He understood their fears and hopes. Slowly, some began to believe. Back in the Queen's palace, news came in slowly. The humans' team was not defeated. They had found small cracks in the enemy's armor, cracks made of doubt and desire for peace. The Queen smiled for the first time in a long while. Maybe this human's strange idea would work after all. The human and his small team moved carefully through the enemy's lands. Each step was dangerous. Soldiers from both sides were always watching, ready to fight. But the human did not carry weapons. He carried something different. Hope. He remembered the Queen's words. Find the cracks in the enemy. Find those who want peace. This was his mission. It was not easy. Many enemies saw him as a spy or a threat. One day the team reached a small village near the enemy's front line. The village was quiet, but the faces of the people were tired. They had lost family and friends in the war. The human felt a deep sadness for them. He spoke gently to the village leaders. He did not demand or threaten. Instead, he shared stories. Stories of peace, of ending the war, of working together to build a better future. At first, the village leaders were suspicious. "Why should we trust you?" one asked. "You are the enemy." The human nodded. "I understand. Trust is hard after years of fighting. But my queen wants peace. We want to stop the war. If we work together, we can save lives on both sides." Slowly, the leaders began to listen. They saw the human's honest eyes. They heard the hope in his voice. Some wanted to believe that peace was possible. The human knew this was just the beginning. One village would not end a war. But it was a start. A small crack in the enemy's armor. His team moved next to a nearby army camp. The soldiers there were strong and ready to fight. The human spoke with respect, not fear. He asked questions. He listened more than he talked. He learned that many soldiers were tired. They missed their families. They did not want more bloodshed. The human promised to tell the Queen that peace was possible, if they could find a way. Word spread slowly. More villages, more soldiers, and even some leaders began to question the endless fighting. They talked in secret, sharing hope. Back in the Queen's palace, the generals were watching closely. Some still doubted the human's strange plan. "Talking to the enemy will make us weak," said one general angrily. But the alien Queen believed in the human's idea. "Strength is not only weapons," she said. "It is understanding. It is knowing when to fight and when to listen." The human's team sent messages back to the palace. Each message brought hope. Small groups were ready to switch sides or stop fighting. The war was still fierce. Battles continued. But now there was a new kind of battle. A battle for peace. The human thought about his home, far away from the war. He remembered his family and friends. He wanted to end this war so no one else would lose someone they loved. He knew the road. Ahead was long and full of danger, but for the first time he felt that victory was possible. Not with weapons alone, but with courage, kindness, and a simple idea. Back in the grand hall of the alien Queen's palace, the generals sat around the large table again. The room was full of whispers and uneasy glances. Some generals shook their heads in disbelief. Others looked curious but careful. "How can talking to the enemy win a war?" one general asked loudly. His voice echoed in the hall. "We need strength. We need weapons. Not these peaceful words." Another general, younger and quieter, nodded. "But maybe there is some truth in it. Our soldiers are tired. Our enemies might not all want to fight." The alien Queen listened quietly. She could feel the weight of her people's doubts and fears. The war had made everyone hard and angry. Trust was almost gone. She looked at the human who had started all this talk. He stood near the back, calm but waiting. The human had no uniform or medals, only his quiet confidence. The Queen cleared her throat. "I will not lie," she said. "This idea is strange to many of us. But the war is not strange. It is deadly and endless. We must try new ways." She turned to the human. "Tell us what you have learned from your missions." The human stepped forward and spoke carefully. "Your Majesty, I found that the enemy is not a single group. It is many groups with different goals and fears. Some want peace, but feel trapped by their leaders. He paused, looking around. If we reach out to these groups, we can weaken the enemy from inside. We do not need to destroy them all. We need to give them hope. The generals listened, some with doubt, some with surprise. The human continued, I understand that trust is hard, but trust grows with actions. We must show we want peace, not only fight. One general shook his head. What if it is a trap? What if they use this to kill us? The human smiled faintly. That is a risk in any war. But hiding behind fear will only lead to more death. The queen nodded slowly. The war has cost us much. Our people are tired, our empire weak. If this plan can bring even a chance to end the fighting, we must try. Some generals grumbled but said nothing more. The decision was clear. The queen's will was final. Later, the human met with his small team. They prepared for the next mission. This time they would go deeper into enemy lands to find more allies. As they moved out, the human thought about the strange mix of fear and hope he saw in the council room. It reminded him that even the strongest can doubt when faced with change. But he believed in people. Not only the humans, but also the aliens. He believed that deep inside, everyone wanted peace. The first mission had given them small victories. Now they needed bigger ones. The humans' team traveled quietly, speaking to leaders, soldiers, and villagers. They heard stories of loss, fear, and hope. Slowly, cracks grew bigger. More groups questioned the war. Some even sent secret messages offering help. Back at the palace, the alien queen watched the news with growing hope. The war was far from over, but the humans' strange plan was working. The queen realized something important. Strength was not only in weapons and ships, but also in courage to try something new. And sometimes the smallest voice in a crowded room could change the fate of many. The human and his small team moved deeper into enemy territory. The danger grew with every step. Enemy patrols were everywhere, yet they walked carefully, speaking quietly, hoping their words would be stronger than weapons. One night, the team reached a small camp. It was not a stronghold, but a place where tired soldiers rested. The soldiers were worn out, many missing their homes and families. The human saw the pain in their eyes. He stepped forward, showing no fear. I come with a message from the alien, Queen, he said softly. She wants to end the war. She wants peace, but she cannot do it alone. The soldiers looked at each other, confused and cautious. One soldier, tall and strong, asked, Why should we believe you? How do we know this is not a trick? The human nodded. I understand your doubt. I am here to listen, not to fight. The Queen knows this war has cost too much. If we can find a way to stop, many will live. For a long time, the soldiers did not speak. The night was quiet except for the crackling fire. Then a young soldier stood and said, I am tired of this war. I want to go home to my family. Others nodded quietly. The human smiled gently. Then you are not alone. There are many like you. We want to help you. The next days, the humans' team spoke with more soldiers in the camp. They shared stories of peace and hope. They did not promise easy answers. They promised to try. Slowly, the soldiers began to trust the human and his team. Some secretly agreed to stop fighting. Some sent messages to their leaders, asking for peace talks. When the human sent the news back to the alien queen, she felt a small but real hope. Her empire's war was not lost yet. The queen called her generals again. This time the mood was different. Some still doubted the human's plan, but many were hopeful. We see now, said one general, that war is not always about strength and fire. It is about hearts and minds. The human's idea was working. The enemy was not a single monster, but many people, with fears and hopes just like the queen's own people. The human and his team continued their work. They moved from camp to camp, village to village. Each small success was a step closer to peace. But danger was never far. Some enemy leaders saw this as betrayal. They sent soldiers to capture or kill the human and his team. One night, the human barely escaped an ambush. His quick thinking and calm saved the team. They hid until the danger passed. The Queen heard of this and sent secret help to protect the human's team. She knew their mission was too important to lose. As the team pressed on, the human felt the weight of the war on his shoulders, but he also felt the power of hope growing stronger. He thought about how different this was from the battles and explosions he had expected. This war might be won by words and trust, not guns and ships. And maybe, just maybe, this was the future the Queen and her people needed. The alien Queen's palace was quiet after the long days of war and meetings. The human stood alone in a small room, looking out at the stars. His mind traveled far away, to a place he once called home. He was not always a hero or a leader. Once he was just an ordinary engineer working on machines and ships. He had no special powers or weapons. What made him different was curiosity. Since he was a child, he wanted to understand everything, how machines worked, how people thought, and how different cultures lived. When he joined the Queen's empire, many did not trust him. Humans were strangers in the galaxy, often seen as weak or strange. But he never gave up learning. He studied alien languages, listened to their stories, and watched how they lived. His knowledge grew quietly. While others trained in war, he trained in understanding. He believed that to win peace, one must first understand the enemy. The Queen remembered when she first saw him in the crowd, a small, quiet man with no rank or title. She never expected him to speak at the War Council, but his words changed everything. Now the human's past was a secret known to few. His family was back on a distant planet, safe but far away. He missed them, but knew his duty was here. One evening, the Queen invited him to her chambers. "You have done more than anyone imagined," she said. "Tell me, why did you choose this path?" The human smiled softly. "I grew up watching humans fight wars and make peace. I saw how words could stop fighting better than weapons. When I came here, I wanted to help not just with machines, but with hope." The Queen nodded. "Your knowledge has saved lives. Your courage has given us all a new way." He looked at her, feeling humble. "I only wish others will learn that strength is more than weapons. It is understanding and courage." News of the human's work spread quietly among the people. Some called him a hero. Others called him a strange but wise man. But he never sought glory. His goal was peace. As the war moved closer to an end, the human prepared for the biggest challenge yet, helping the Queen and the enemy leaders meet and talk as friends, not enemies. He thought about the long journey from being a simple engineer to a key voice in the galaxy. It was not easy, but every step had a purpose. The stars outside shone bright. The human felt hope grow inside him. The war was ending and a new story was beginning, one of peace, trust, and a future built together. The war was changing. Slowly but surely, the alien Queen's plan was working. The small cracks inside the enemy's forces had grown wider. The soldiers and leaders who once fought fiercely now spoke quietly of peace and hope. The human and his team had become well known in enemy camps. Though some still feared them, many had begun to listen. Secret meetings were held in dark rooms. Letters passed in silence. Trust was fragile but growing. Back in the Queen's palace, the mood was different. The generals who had once doubted now watched the news carefully. Reports came in daily about groups refusing to fight or even switching sides. One general said, "It feels like the enemy is breaking apart from inside. Their unity is gone." The Queen nodded. This is what we needed. A chance to end this war without more bloodshed. But the enemy was not ready to give up easily. Some leaders were angry and desperate. They tightened control, sending more soldiers to hunt the human's team. One day the human received a secret message from a high-ranking enemy leader. The message said that if the Queen's empire stopped fighting, they would consider peace talks. It was the first official offer. The human showed the message to the Queen. She smiled for the first time in years. "This is the turning point," she said. "Prepare the diplomats. We will meet." At the same time, the humans team worked harder. They traveled from one group to another, spreading hope and building trust. Each small victory was a step toward peace. But danger still followed. One night, the humans team was nearly caught in a trap. They escaped, but it was a reminder that not everyone wanted peace. The Queen strengthened her guards around the human. She knew his safety was crucial. Without him, the fragile peace might collapse. Meanwhile, the enemy's forces grew weaker. Without the support of all their groups, their power was breaking. The long war was taking its toll on everyone. The Queen called her generals. "We will end this war with strength, but also with wisdom. This human's idea has shown us a new way." The generals agreed. The Queen's empire prepared for peace talks. The soldiers prepared to lay down their weapons. The human thought about what had changed. It was not just the battles or the weapons. It was trust. It was hope. It was the courage to try something new. The war that once seemed endless was now ending. The Queen's empire was no longer alone. New friends were coming from the shadows, and the human, once a quiet engineer in the crowd, had helped change the fate of the stars. The day had come. The alien Queen's great palace was filled with nervous energy. Today, for the first time in many years, leaders from the enemy coalition would arrive to meet with the Queen. They would talk about peace. The human stood quietly, among the Queen's advisors. He watched the doors as they slowly opened. The enemy leaders entered, dressed in their own proud ways, but their faces showed tiredness from long years of war. The Queen rose from her throne. "Welcome," she said, her voice strong but kind. "We have fought for many years. Now we must find a way to live together." The talks began slowly. At first there was silence and careful words. Each side watched the other, unsure if peace was real or just another battle. The human observed closely. He knew trust did not grow in one day. It grew in small moments, in honest words and patient listening. As the hours passed, the leaders shared their stories. They spoke of losses, of families lost and homes destroyed. Slowly, the hard walls began to soften. The human stood and spoke. "War has taken much from all of us, but now we have a choice. We can choose to build a future where our children live without fear." The leaders looked at him, then at each other. Some nodded. Others were silent but thoughtful. Days turned into weeks. The talks continued. Sometimes they were hard and painful. Old wounds were opened. But the desire for peace was stronger. The Queen often looked at the human with gratitude. His courage had brought them to this moment. Outside the palace, the people waited. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Families hoped for peace. The galaxy watched, waiting to see if the war would end. Finally, a treaty was signed. The leaders shook hands not as enemies but as partners. The war was over. The human felt a deep relief. Years of fear and fighting were ending. A new era was beginning. The Queen declared a day of peace and unity. Flags from all the species flew together. Music and laughter filled the streets. The human walked among the crowd. People thanked him. Children smiled. The quiet engineer was now a symbol of hope. He thought about the long journey, from the back of the War Council room to the heart of peace talks. He knew the work was not over. Peace needed care and strength. But for now, the stars shone brighter. The galaxy had changed, and a human from the crowd had helped make it happen. The day after the peace treaty, the alien Queen stood on the palace balcony. She looked out over the city, now calm and peaceful. The sky was clear, and the people below were celebrating. The long war was finally over. Beside her stood the human, the quiet engineer who had changed everything. He did not wear medals or a crown. He wore simple clothes like any ordinary person, but to the Queen and many others, he was a hero. The Queen turned to him. "You stood up when no one else did. You spoke when others stayed silent. You gave us hope." The human smiled softly. I only listened. Sometimes the right words come from those who watch and understand. She nodded. Your courage reminds me that even the smallest voice can change the course of history. The human looked down at the crowd. He saw people of all species laughing, singing, and dancing together. Old enemies, now friends. It was a new beginning. He thought about his journey, from the back of a crowded room to the center of a new era. It was never about power or glory. It was about believing in people. Later, the human visited places once torn by war. He helped rebuild homes and schools. He listened to stories of pain and hope. He reminded people that peace needed care, just like war needed strength. News of the human story spread across the galaxy. Young people learned about the power of courage and kindness. Leaders learned to listen more and fight less. The alien queen invited the human to become her advisor, not for war, but for peace. Together, they planned a future where all species could live in harmony. One evening, as the sun set, the human stood once again among the crowd. A child ran up and asked, "Are you the hero who saved us?" He smiled and knelt down. "No, I am just one voice, but every voice matters. When people stand together, they can change the world." The child smiled and ran off to play. The human watched the stars come out. He knew the future was still full of challenges, but now it was full of hope too. And so the story of the human from the crowd became a legend, not because he was the strongest or the richest, but because he dared to stand up and give solid advice when it was needed most. The alien queen almost lost the war. But in the end, a human from the crowd helped her win, not with weapons, but with courage, kindness, and a simple idea.